So we have our piece chucked up. We've got our RPM set to 1000, which is the speed we want it at for facing our part. So the next thing that we need to do is set up our tool. We're going to be using a facing tool, and that is going to machine the face of our part here, this outer edge. It's going to get it nice and smooth, and it's going to make sure that it is square at a 90-degree angle with the axis of our spindle, or our Z-axis. So our cutting tool needs to come in and kind of cut off the surface of that. In order for it to do a good job, it needs to be lined up both height and also orientation so that it comes in at the right angle. So I'm going to show you how to set up our tool post and our tool so that we get the correct height and the correct angle for facing our part. I have the facing tool here. It has a carbide insert. The carbide insert can be changed using a couple Allen wrenches here. We want this clip to be snug but never tight. Carbide is very brittle, and if this is too tight, it can break, it could chip. So we want it just to be snugged in there. This one is nice and snug. The tool is snug in the tool holder. Now we want to worry about the height. So we've got this lock nut here that should be only finger tight, so I'm going to release that. And now I can rotate this part, and this is what's going to adjust the height of my tool. When it rests in the tool holder, and I'm going to have it facing out this way just so that it's easier to see, I can lower it onto one of these sides of the tool holder, and it rests here. As I rotate this part clockwise, that is lifting up the tool. As I rotate it counterclockwise, that lowers the tool. I want the tip of this carbide insert, the top edge, that's the cutting edge, I want that to be exactly in the center of my part. But when I look at my part, it's going to be really difficult to figure out where exactly center is. So I need to use something to help me find the center. To make it easier to see, I'm just going to remove this chip guard. And I'm going to grab our dead center. The dead center is very sharp. It would certainly puncture your skin if you bumped into it. So we need to really be careful when we're using this that we don't poke ourselves or poke somebody else. And when we're done using it, we need to remove it from the machine right away just to avoid injury. So I'm going to put the dead center into the tailstock, and I'm going to use that to set my tool height. It's a lot easier to set height with this tiny point than to try to find the center of the workpiece. I'm going to come over here to the tailstock, rotate this clockwise to bring the tailstock quill out. Make sure that the quill is free of any debris or metal chips. Make sure that the dead center is also clear. Line it up and then slam fit it in. By slamming it in, those tapers are seated and I can't remove it. To remove it, I would have to retract the quill, and once I retract that quill, it just pops out of the taper, and then I would be able to put it away. So I'm bringing it back and it popped out. I'm going to bring the quill back out so I can put it back in. And now we're going to use this to set our tool height. The tool on the tool post, I'm going to have it on the back segment. I'm not going to tighten the tool post. There's this lever here that tightens the tool onto the tool post. If it's tight on there, I'm not going to be able to change the height, so I want to leave it free. I'm also going to use my box wrench to loosen the tool post so that I can rotate it. Now I can rotate the tool post so I can get my tool over to the dead center. And again, I can also lift the tool. I'm going to bring the carriage over until the tip of the carbide insert is really close to the point on the dead center. And then I'm going to look at it and see what adjustments I need to make. Okay, so the dead center is over here and the carbide insert is right here. I'm going to try to get this to zoom in a little bit so that you can see what I'm looking at. So I want to look at those and compare them and then make any adjustments that I need here by rotating this piece so that those are the same exact height. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Looks like the tool is a little bit too high, so I'm just going to lower that. I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer so it's easier to see. Okay, now it looks like they're at the same height. When I'm happy with my result, I'm going to tighten the lock nut. Just hand tight. I don't want to use any tools for this because then it's going to be a problem later to loosen it. All right, I'm going to move the carriage out of the way and take that dead center out. I don't want to puncture my elbow. We'll put the dead center away, and then we're going to move on to setting the orientation of the tool. So now we've got the height ready. Now I want to make sure that the cutting edge is lined up with my part. So I'm keeping this tool post loose, and I'm going to bring it over to my parts. I want the edge of that carbide insert to be parallel with my workpiece. And I'm going to start by making it clearly not parallel, and then I'm going to feed in the tool so that you can see when it's actually parallel. All right, let's see. So I've got my insert here, and I've got the part there, and you can see that there's a gap between them. I'm going to feed in the cutting tool until those are parallel and I don't see the gap anymore. Once I get that lined up really well, I'll tighten the tool post. So I'm just going to look down and make sure that there's no gap. There's still a little bit of a gap. Bring that in a little closer. Gap is now gone. Take my box wrench and tighten up that tool post. Once it's nice and snug, I'm just going to double check that it's still lined up parallel, and it looks good. Now that we've lined everything up and we've set our height, we are ready to face our part.